In Luke 11:14-28, the expulsion of a demon turns into a dispute about identity between Jesus and members of the crowd. This crowd is familiar with exorcisms. See Jesus' question in verse 19. What they are amazed at is the thoroughgoing effectiveness of what Jesus has done. The demon left and the man spoke. This is deeply challenging to people who would identify themselves as children of God, because why can't we do that? Now, of course, the obvious answer is that as children of God, we're clearly not quite the genuine article, and he is. But that may not be tempting for them, so in some sections of the crowd they find other ways to deal with the challenge of how come he can do this and we can't. One answer is he can do this because he's in league with the demons and we're not. Another answer is to treat Jesus as one of those false prophets spoken of in Deuteronomy 13 who is trying to lead the people to worship other gods, so they ask him for a sign from heaven. Now, how does Jesus respond to them twisting his identity in order to preserve their own? Because at back of all this is a shared understanding that God's people will ultimately rule with him and will not have to give way either to demons or any other manifestation of the powers that be. Why can't they do what Jesus does? Well, Jesus speaks to one reason in verses 17-20. He's doing more here than just exposing the fallacy of their accusation when he says that divided kingdoms don't stand. He's also speaking to the state of the nation. Israel is divided against itself, and they know it. And critically, of course, it's divided for and against Jesus. You cannot reject God when he turns up in person and still expect to be ruling with him over the demons. Israel is a house divided against itself. Unfortunately, Satan's kingdom is not. If he were even half as divided as the church is today, evil would fail to get going, fail to get organised. In verses 19-20, Jesus goes on to impale them on the horns of the very dilemma they were trying to avoid. So what is going on when their people drive out demons? Well, what possible answers could they give? Same as you, Jesus, Beelzebub. Yeah. Or, well, our people don't actually drive them out because they won't go for us, but we kind of shoo them away a bit. And sometimes it sort of works for a while. They must be wishing at this point that they could say, well, you're not really driving them out. But it's too late for that. They've already acknowledged that he is. And Jesus makes it even more pointed when he uses the phrase, the finger of God, to describe what's really going on when he drives out demons. That phrase occurs in Psalm 8. Read it. It's full of references to ruling with God over his enemies. Implication, what are you, enemies or fellow rulers? It also occurs in Deuteronomy 9, verse 10. The finger of God inscribed the law on the stone tablets given to Moses. Implication, you guys claim to be all about the law, but you oppose the very finger that wrote it. And then most pointedly of all, in Exodus 8 and verse 19, it's Pharaoh's magicians who've managed up to this point to mimic all the plagues and then can't do the gnats by their secret arts. And they said to Pharaoh, this is the finger of God. Implication, you think you're true descendants of Moses, Pharaoh's magicians more like. God's people characteristically rule with him. And Jesus points out that he is the one doing that here. He is the someone stronger in verses 21-23 who has turned up and attacked, overpowered and disarmed the strong man. Notice that he takes away the armour in which the man trusted. We can profitably think about how Jesus has robbed Satan of all his weapons. But also, if we want to be ruling with God, think how we can avoid rearming God's enemy. Ephesians 6 gives plenty of clues. We cannot be both for and against Jesus, see verse 23, and still expect to be ruling with God. Jesus finishes by telling a story from a demonic perspective in verses 24-26. Just think of the kind of human story that would run parallel to this. What are we thinking? A botched Jewish exorcism? A Christian conversion perhaps, followed by years of backsliding and unrepentance? Whatever you imagine, it's clear that we can forget the idea of cleaning out a human being on the inside and then just telling them to sit still and be good. That kind of holiness is a loser every time. They'd be a sitting duck. Fortunately, Jesus has no intention of telling his followers anything of the sort. It's more like, get up and get going and I'll give you my Holy Spirit to make you good. If we want to rule with God, we need to be in active obedience today. If you have been listening, thank you.